Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Tuesday, August 8th meeting of the Jupyter IPython developers group. We are following an agenda in Dropbox paper. There is a link within the chat if you'd like to follow along, and we will go through our updates. It looks like Matthias has included an IPython update and some links within the first section. I don't think he's on the call, so we won't hear from him, but feel free to review that and give him feedback as he requests. And we will move on to...
It's actually me on the IPython thing.
Oh, you can talk about it, Thomas?
Yes, it was me who
okay.
posted in the document.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
So yes, I've made some tweaks to the documentation of the config options so you can link to individual config options, which is something I've wanted for a while when I'm referring people to the docs on config options. And yeah, the main thing is there anything that you want to change about those docs before we move the code over to Traitlets so that other projects can use it as well? At the moment, it's just in IPython.
Okay. So we'll move on to documentation. Jessica, do you want to share or talk about your updates?
Yeah, so we now have profiles, so people can create a PyInvoke to set up a little folder that includes the content of a particular talk. So, for example, we have this ready for SciPy. We have like a little toy talk in there as well. Carol noted that there was some that we needed to include the content from the FASTA plugin. I think FASTA extension, and now it's back in. We were able to collaborate with Zach Saylor and get some new content from, I think it's the Zika virus. Let me just confirm that. I think it's the Zika virus. But yeah, so we have data for the FASTA demonstration, and now we're just trying to get the last pieces of documentation ready before JupyterCon. I should be trying to find a time to talk with people to just come up with a better list for that, and that's kind of what I'm looking forward to in the future.
Thank you, Jessica. Looks like Grant has some updates, but I don't see him on the call. Looks like there was a 5. Is there anyone else who wants to talk about the notebook or his notes or the issues that he has linked there?
I can do that again. So yeah, just to say that we got, or Grant got 5.1 release candidate 1 out, and there's a couple of things that might be bugs or might be cache issues. We're not quite sure at the moment, that we're trying to work out before we do 5.1 final.
Okay, great. And for the Jupyter Lab update, is that Steve or Darian?
Yep. I guess on behalf of, I don't see Brian. Let me just double check. I want to steal his thunder. Okay.
No, Brian.
Brian's team, the interns at Cal Poly, released the initial version 0.1 of the native Jupyter Lab, so the Electron app. So that's available for download. The binaries are there. Invite everyone to check that out. Last week on Jupyter Lab Core, we added the ability to dynamically switch application themes. So that's in master right now, not yet released, but this allows you to switch between the 2 themes that we have currently, but as more themes get added, they can be loaded dynamically without refreshing the page. Darian is continuing to work on the settings editor. The current iteration is a side-by-side view like what you would get in Sublime or VS Code, where you have the defaults populated with comments in line on the left, whichever way my hands are showing up on the video. And on the other side is your user settings that you're editing, which can also support inline comments, which are both backed by the JSON schema. So nothing's changing from the backend regard. It's just how it's presented to the user. So he's working through that, and we are continuing to work on the notebook models refactor. We've got another iteration of all the interfaces for the ModelDB. So if anyone wants to follow along, I've linked to the branch on Phosphor where that work is ongoing. And that's it for Jupyter Lab.
Nice. Looks like Cameron has some updates that he wants to share also about Jupyter Lab. Go ahead, Cameron. And I will mute myself since we are in the same room.
Yeah, so I've been kind of not present in the meetings, but I've been working with the Git plugin team and on the Electron app here at Cal Poly, just to make sure that we have the styling and they get shipped that are stable by JupyterCon and they're usable by our users. And also, if you guys want to check it out, I posted on my GitHub pages. It's in the Dropbox paper, but I'm testing out the Jupyter Lab website right now, the page for those that I sent it to earlier with the 404 page. Sorry about that, but that is fixed now. And that's it for me. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Cameron. And it looks like Jupyter Widgets is next.
We've had a series of betas that have been released, and we had a couple people test it over the weekend, exposed a few issues that we're going to fix before an RC. But we're still this close to release. Just a few more issues that people brought up. So it'll be a better release.
Nice. Okay. NVConvert.
Well, wait, and Sylvan also has been working on C++ widgets. Sorry, I thought Sylvan was going to chime in there. He has a...
That's all right. It works. Now we have C++ kernel with live help, like with a question mark std vector. Shows the oxygen documentation. We have completion. And we support the COM protocol and have a few widgets examples working in the C++ notebook.
And it's easy to understate that. I mean, this is another way that we can expose any number of C or C++ libraries to interactive functionality and interactive widgets, etc.
Thanks.
Okay. So anything else on that before we move on? No. Okay. All right. Now we can move on to NVConvert. Go ahead. I think that's M, right? Your audio is really low, M.
Is this better?
No, you sound a million miles away.
And that we could hear you that time, though. We're still not hearing you.
No, I can. Yeah, I can hear that you're talking, but it's not loud enough to actually understand you. Why don't we try moving on and try and work on that a little bit, and then just interrupt us wherever we're at if you want to test it, or we'll come back to you after the next section. Any updates on services? I don't see anything in there, but I did want to call it out before we move on to Jupyter Hub. No. Okay, so Jupyter Hub, looks like you guys have a release this week.
Yep, just been polishing, putting finishing touches, and updating docs and doing tests. But I should have a Jupyter Hub beta this week.
Okay. And Thomas, do you want to talk about the Jupyter console?
Yeah, I mean, there's not much to say, just that I noticed it's been quite a while since we did a release, so I'm going to try and do a new one in the next week or two. And so if there's anything that people are aware of with Jupyter Console that you want to get into a new release, then now's the time to make sure it happens.
Okay. Let's see. Do you want to try one more time with the audio?
I think this will be just fine. Am I correct?
There we go. Yes.
Okay, fantastic. So in terms of NVConvert, we just merged in a tag-based element filtering thing for outputs, cells, and individual outputs. Where if you wanted to do it in individual output, what you would do is in the metadata, say of the display call, you would have a field called tags, and then you would have your string in the tag. So now that it will be available, but that still leaves open the question of how to handle the input. And we had a nice long conversation at the Berkeley sort of group yesterday about how to properly enable that. Since what you're effectively doing is creating a signal at one place and then telling someone else later to do something else if you don't do it immediately. And so what we're introducing, or what I proposed introducing, was the notion of a sieve. Like after the pre-processing steps, the preprocessors will always guarantee to return a valid notebook format, but the problem with the inputs and removing inputs and taking care of that is that if you want to actually do that, it's no longer a valid notebook if you want to have the output still present. So the sieve will allow you to use a preprocessor-like system, but to then actually not guarantee that a notebook will be the thing that comes out. In this case, what we're doing is replacing the source with the value none. That can never be produced by a valid notebook, so we know that it can come from NVConvert, and we know that the templates can be able to figure that out. There's already a discussion about whether this should be done through cell metadata. We actually didn't want to do this through cell metadata because then people would be implicitly encouraged to not use this for the basis of like tag-based filtering, but rather just global like filtering and of a cell so that it's always removed from output. And if we want to do that, I would suggest that we use a different signal for that, because combining these signals where in one case you would want to remove it but not in the other case, which is the idea for tag-based element filtering, we don't want to actually rely on such a signal that people would be putting there in order to just communicate internally with ourselves.
Okay. Anything else on?
That's it for announcements and stuff. But if anyone had stuff to say in response, it would be I'd be interested in hearing it. Or not. That works too.
I didn't really follow the rationale for not doing it through some temporary metadata there.
Because we don't want people in their notebook to be able to go into the cell metadata and add the value that is our magic value that we're just using to signal to ourselves, to their actual cells. And currently they can't use this mechanism to do that. And so we just wanted to keep it clear that if we want to enable that feature at some point, that is a different thing than the tag-based element filtering. And you shouldn't be treating the signal mechanism of one to accomplish the purpose of the other.
I hope we can find a way around that without making notebook-like things that aren't valid notebooks.
Yeah, we definitely can.
But not with keeping the actual manipulation local, or we can't do it in a preprocessor, rather. And the other aim is to make sure that it doesn't go into templates, or that the level at which it goes into templates is inside the skeleton templates, so that everyone has it, and we don't need to worry about output format. It's also the idea that came up in the conversation.
I think it should be doable.
The other part of it was what came up in the conversation is it might be worthwhile to think about what we might be able to accomplish if we don't adhere to the assumption that what goes into the template step is exclusively a notebook JSON, but rather a notebook-like JSON that we can know how to process.
That would be interesting, certainly, but if we're going to say it has to be a notebook-like JSON, then we have to work out how notebook-like it's expected to be, which seems like a big can of worms that we're opening.
The modification in this current case is including the possible value of display equals none.
That's in this current case. But if you're opening it up to things that aren't valid notebooks, then we have to define what set of modifications we expect
Fernando's
Civs
pointing
to
out
do.
Fernando's pointing out in the comments that we probably should not have this discussion here. And I agree. Like, sorry, Thomas, I want to hear what you say, but we should figure out a time. So anyone who wants to talk about that, let's put your handle or something or name in the document, and I will organize a meeting for all of us. I'm assuming that's both you and Min, Thomas. Okay, thanks. Sorry for cutting off.
All right. So good. Go ahead and set that up, and we'll move on to conferences and workshops. It doesn't look like the only new thing that I saw in there is an addition by Carol for Grace Hopper. Do you want to talk about that a little bit, Carol?
Sure. There's an all-day event at Grace Hopper called Open Source Day, and there are 8 projects each year that run a full-day sprint workshop with attendees. And so Jupyter is going to be one of the organizations being featured this year. And Dana Bauer from Planet Labs is going to help out. Jamie is helping out, and Jessica just let me know that she wants to help out too. So it's good stuff.
Awesome. Sounds great. Thanks, Carol. JupyterCon, nothing new to highlight for today. Lots of last-minute preparations going on for the event, just a couple weeks away. Reminder to register for the sprints on Saturday. Again, if you have not yet done that, please click through and add your name to the list. We don't have any, does anyone have any action items for the group or the community that you want me to add to, that you want me to add to this agenda? We don't currently have any, so just speak up now if you want to add something to that. Otherwise, we can move on. Okay, so the only action item from the last time we met is that Jason and Kyle were looking for sprint leaders. Are you continuing to look for more? Should I leave that on there for next week, or
yes,
do you feel like you're in a good spot? Okay.
No, we need more people. So
okay.
my guess is that many people will be there and working on many projects. It would be nice if we had an explicit list of projects that people knew were going to have people there and leaders there that are willing to help new people. So if you're willing to be a sprint leader, which essentially is something like having some sort of curated list of issues people can work on, be willing to work with people, etc., put the project and your name down there. And then what we'll do is we advertise that, for the people that are there, here's the projects that have said, we've got a list of issues, come join us and we'll work together, etc. But I expect it'll be fairly informal too. So
yeah,
it would be nice to have some forewarning and some organization and planning, an understanding of who's planning on tackling what and who's willing to help new people come along.
Okay. And have you posted that request within the Google groups?
We posted, Matthias posted, we'll reiterate it. That's a good idea.
Yeah, might just be a good idea to put it in there. And then you do have the option of emailing everyone who's registered so far on the Eventbrite. I would maybe save that for as we get a little bit closer, just so you're not messaging people more than once before the event. But that might be another way to get some additional people to state their interest in advance.
Good thoughts. Thanks.
Okay. All right. So at this point, we're pretty much at the end of the agenda. Is there anything that anyone wants to talk about or share with the community that is not on the agenda? This would be the point to do that. And it doesn't sound like there is. Feel free to jump in if someone was getting ready to get unmuted or something. But the last thing on the agenda is the recap of the releases. If you have something from the notes in the section above that isn't repeated here, please go ahead and add that. It's just a section where we keep track of all of our releases. And with that, we will go ahead and sign off. Thank you, everyone. I look forward to seeing you in a couple weeks. I don't have a countdown yet going for JupyterCon. Does anyone have the number of days left? No.
I think it's right about 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Yeah, that's what's in my head, but I'm thinking a number. So maybe time to start work.
It's 14 days.
Exactly.
Tuesday is the first day.
Got it. Awesome. So well, have a good rest of your week. It was good to see you all. Bye.